Hi, today's video is about how to keep warm when you're wild camping. There's lots of elements to this, and you hear a lot of people saying, oh, you need to sleep naked, or you need to go out and get the best quality sleeping bag you can afford. And there's lots of different aspects and different ways and different ethos of how people will camp, and it might depend whether it's a valley camp, stuff's coming out your car boot, if you've got to carry it, but essentially there's a few key principles that's worth really understanding. Personally, I'm a very cold sleeper, and by that means that I would much rather be too warm than too cold, and B, I really struggle to stay warm. And many a night in my early days camping, I would just literally put all my clothes on, my waterproofs, my hat and everything, and just shiver all night. But yeah, so the first thing we need to think about is what is happening when we're outside. We put a tent up, we get inside our tent. Now, immediately we sit down, we're going to start losing heat. Whereas when we're at home, we've got things like fires and radiators and ways of creating heat. But actually, all we've really got when we're out camping is ways of saving losing heat, if that makes sense. So the best bit of advice really is to start warm. As soon as you stop exercising, try and get your down jacket on, try and have really good admin in camp, try and make sure you have that hot meal, make sure you have that hot drink, try and preserve as much heat as you can, wear that hat. In the daytime, make sure you've been really sensible in terms of getting your waterproofs on and stuff, and try and retain heat. It's much easier to stay warm than to get warm. That's the first bit of advice. And then the other bit of advice is just think how we are losing heat. So we lose heat by radiation. We have heat being lost into the air. So we need good insulation. So for that reason, many people think, what we need to do is go out and get a really good bag. And what we do need a good bag, and that is important. The more insulation we have, then the easier it is to stay warm. So a good quality sleeping bag. But also we're going to lose heat by evaporation. And this is a little bit underrated, I think. So we spent the day working hard, sweating. And even if we don't think we've been sweating, we have. So we'll have dirt, we'll have grime, we'll have sweat, we'll have wet bits. We've got quite an effective layering system probably. We're wicking sweat away, but that actually causes us to be very cold. Quite often what we do when we then get into bed, we just add layers, but underneath our warm layers is we've got a layer of damp, dirt, etc. So those people who said, oh, I sleep naked, obviously wearing clothes has to be warmer than sleeping naked, but I suppose what they mean by that is to take off those dirty clothes, take off those wet clothes, take off those today's clothes. What I would probably advocate is probably putting on tomorrow's clothes. You have a bit of a wipe round, a bit of a wipe, maybe even using your dirty clothes to get rid of all that sweat, and then put some clean clothes on and get into the bag. So we've taken care of our evaporation. We're limiting the amount of radiation. The other one is the conduction. Massively underestimate how much heat we lose into the ground. We're laying on the ground. The ground is always colder than the ambient air, and you go on a first aid course and they'll throw figures around like you're going to lose 7 times more heat into the ground than you would just into the air. But of course, when you on your sleeping bag, when you lay on your sleeping bag, you're compressing a lot of the fill, so you're not actually getting a lot of loft beneath you. So actually the most important bit of kit is probably a really good mattress. There's lots of different mattresses, self-inflating mattresses, blow-up mattresses, thick mattresses, Z-type, roll mats, roll type roll mats, closed cell roll mats. But they all often have an R rating, and the R rating is sort of how warm they are. Now, some people will go out and say, let's get an Thermarest New Air X-Therm, and they're the warmest, have their strongest warmth to rate ratio on the market. You get an R rating of around 7.2 on one model, 6.9 on the other. And you can physically, I use one myself, you can physically feel the warmth radiating back at you. And other people say, I will go with a Neo Air, it's 4. Or people will say, I'll use something thinner. Of course, as I said, some people sleep warmer than others. Other people might say, well, I get a Neo Air Extra Light at a 4, and then I get a Thermarest Z mat and with a 2, and that'll give me a 2, a 4, and use them together, that'll make 6. But again, that largely depends on what you're carrying. So, often on Facebook groups, someone say, I've got 150 quid, I need a mat and a bag, and immediately people come in and say, well, you can get this sleeping bag for 120 quid. I'll probably be saying, well, go out and spend £100 on your mat, and then see what you can do with the sleeping bag, because again, you can have clothes, you can wear a down jacket inside a sleeping bag. So you're starting warm, you're staying warm, you're swapping out of your today's clothes, probably putting on tomorrow's clothes, and then getting onto a really thick warm mat and a decent bag. If you're still cold, you add insulation, maybe popping a hat on, maybe drawing little things like drawing your drawer cord in, zipping your zips of your tent up, because if the heat is in your sleeping bag, in your down jacket, in your tent, it's not got anywhere to go really, and you're going to stay warm for a lot longer. The other things that's worth considering are things like alcohol can lower your body temperature. Got an old-fashioned one, but this is sort of an old-fashioned aluminium type cig. I've certainly boiled up some water, popped that inside my sleeping bag, or popped it inside a sock inside my sleeping bag, because once these are boiling there, you could scald yourself quite easily. And then that'll just cool down over the morning, and then tomorrow morning you've already got some nice clean boiled water to drink. Lots of other ways of doing it. You maybe carried an orange survival bag, you could put that on top of your ground sheet, maybe using a tent footprint. Maybe you might be using a sleeping bag and a quilt. And if you're car camping, you can have all sorts of stuff with you, can't you, in terms of a closed cell mat and a thermal mat, or blankets, or extra layers. So there's lots and lots of different ways of staying warm. Good tent, good mat, half decent bag, get changed, get clean, have a hot meal, avoid alcohol probably, try and keep the heat in. But if you do need to generate heat, a hot water bottle is a great solution. Or even just have a little bit of a walk before you get into sleeping bag, and then try and keep the heat as well as you can. All great examples. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you at the next video. Thank you.